Think first up is listening. I've been both really fortunate on agency side and brand side to work with a lot of awesome people. So I think we've all had our time to learn what we like and what we don't like. And sometimes just asking people their preferences is the easiest way to success. Sometimes it's just a simple little switch that you can make or a way of delivering information that can make someone stay better, easier, or harder and more difficult. So just asking the right questions from the start and setting up the expectations, I think is great. I could have probably done that a lot better when I was a client. So I just now think about it more in a different way on the agency side, going back to my brand clients now and saying, do you prefer this or that? Or how do you like to present to your leadership team and what format is best for you? And what do you even need for that meeting? Because I think sometimes just asking those questions up front saves everybody time and everybody frustration of kind of going back and forth trying to kind of guess what people expect to be done instead of just asking the question. So I'm pretty direct and I hope that that translates well, but I think so far it's working for me.
For nearly 40 years, PIMS has worked behind the scenes of beauty and CPG. Along the way, we've gotten to know the people who make the industry run. The founders, the operators, the ones with the real playbook. This is the PIMS Influence, where they tell you how they actually do it. No fluff. Let's get into it.
Okay, welcome everybody to the PIMS Influence. Today, my very special guest, my old friend, Katie Rosholt. Katie, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Katie is the managing director at Society Marketing Communications. I'm going to ask her to tell us a little bit about what she does there. But before that, I always like to sort of connect the dots with people and how we know each other. Now, Katie and I'm not going to say the year, but we were just talking a little bit before we were setting up the interview. When I was in Chicago, there was a couple of OGs that I connected with there, she being one of them, that when I used to go back and forth a lot from New York to Chicago, I think we started working together when you were at Edelman, if I'm right.
Correct.
But it might be Kramer Castle, right?
Kramer Kressel was later on. That was later in my career. But yeah, no, we started in my first job at Edelman.
And then that led to Current Global, right? Correct?
Yeah, so I worked at Edelman first out of college. I went to Indiana University. Shout out all the Hoosiers. But I graduated and luckily enough joined Edelman. I was there 3 years. Then I moved over to a small family-run agency actually called JM Glass, where I did a lot of like food, cooking, international. I think we crossed paths there as well. Then I went to Kramer Kressel, where I worked at CKPR. Then I went back to Edelman, which is actually where I met the founder of Society, Dina Vassallo. So more on that. But then I left Edelman the second time. And then I went to Current Global, which was part of IPG, which, as everybody knows, is now Omnicom. And during that time, I guess, at IPG, I moved with IPG to Los Angeles. And that's when I found a long-time home at UEG. So a lot of acronym switching. But I was at United Entertainment Group, which back in the time I started was actually owned by UTA, the talent agency. And ironically, UTA sold UEG to Edelman. So there I was working at Edelman again, but at UEG. So I worked at UEG about 8 years total, 6 of them in Los Angeles. The end, I worked in London, setting up the agency's first international office. Then I came back to my hometown of Chicago to do new business. Spent a few years there before the pandemic and before I went to the brand side.
So tell us a little bit about Society and what it is you guys are doing there.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Society started in 2017 in Australia. So I mentioned I met Dina Vassallo, the founder. She and I worked at Edelman on the Unilever business together and just always got along, stayed friends, and approached business in a really similar fashion. And so thankfully, when she was ready to expand to the US, I was also ready for my next adventure. And so I joined up with her because I just love the mission. And the mission is simple, it's the name. So Society is the company. And the reason that it's called that is we only work with brands and organizations looking to advance society in a positive way. So any company doing something good. So a lot of the US clients that we work with now are helping people in spaces like finance or in things like better for you foods. So really based on the work that we've been collectively doing, all of our careers, we've been able to expand here in the US and we're just about to kick off our 3rd year. So it's exciting. Society in Australia is a pretty well-known entity by now. They've got big clients, 2 offices. been around about 7 years, no, 9 years, gosh. So they're more established for sure. It's really a fun journey starting something from scratch here in the States.
Fantastic. And with the experience that you have, I'm sure it was a no-brainer bringing you in or the likes of you to come in and sort of run things. It's also funny that in this, it's in this very crowded marketplace that we will thrive in, there are different ways of sort of talking to clients about expectations and where they want to go and how they want to work. What's the first thing you focus on when a new client comes on board or you're pitching new business? I think what I'm asking is the clients always have high expectations. They want it all, right? They want to be able to do this. They want content. They want to be this. What's the first thing you would like to focus on with them? Or what's the first thing you want to zero in with them?
Well, I think first up is listening. I've been both really fortunate on agency side and brand side to work with a lot of awesome people. So I think we've all had our time to learn what we like and what we don't like. And sometimes just asking people their preferences is the easiest way to success. Sometimes it's just a simple little switch that you can make or a way of delivering information that can make someone's day better, easier, or harder and more difficult. So just asking the right questions from the start and setting up the expectations, I think is great. I could have probably done that a lot better when I was a client. So I just now think about it more in a different way on the agency side, going back to my brand clients now and saying, do you prefer this or that? Or how do you like to present to your leadership team and what format is best for you? And what do you even need for that meeting? Because I think sometimes just asking those questions up front saves everybody time and everybody frustration of kind of going back and forth, trying to kind of guess what people expect to be done instead of just asking the question. So I'm pretty direct and I hope that that translates well, but I think so far it's working for me.
What's also changed in a very short time, it feels like it's a short time, but it's been going on for a while now, is this whole influencer marketing game, right? You and I are kind of simpatico that when we started in this industry, that was something that developed and we heard of but it was media driven when we first started. It was TV, radio, newspapers, magazine. These are the folks that, they look to the PR professionals to build relationships with, that hopefully over time, as you build these relationships, they would evaluate your content and put it into these places. Now, between organic content and paid content, there's different types of social media, there's different type of adaptations. When clients, have high expectations of where they need to be on that level with social media aspects, well, I guess it's a two-part question. Do you still focus a certain amount of attention on those sort of old school media driven based reporting methods and reaching out to those folks? Or is it basically all now kind of social and tied into social implications?
Good question. I think it's two parts. One is the media mix matters based on the consumers you're trying to reach. So it is definitely not a one size fits all anymore. The good thing is with more options for content delivery, the better your odds are of reaching your target audience that you're actually trying to talk to. But there's no point in going after, traditional or legacy media, as they call it, if you're targeting, Gen Alpha, because they're probably not sitting watching CBS or fill in the blank legacy outlet, right? So I think, while certain shows might resonate, finding them and targeting those outlets is more challenging instead of trying to look at the larger picture. I think that if you look at it as the whole pie versus slivers all the time, you actually succeed better because consistency and showing up with relevant information in the format that makes most sense on the platform you're talking in is going to resonate. But if you're showing up with some sort of consistent voice, you will resonate because, at least for me as a consumer that is looking at a lot of different platforms, I want to be able to at least understand the same storyline. So if I'm looking into a certain brand and I want to know more, I might start by just checking out their website by Googling, but that might quickly take me to their socials. So I want to see something consistent. And when I'm on social, I'm probably going to see content that's there from a third party, whether that's a registered dietitian or a fitness instructor, fill in the blank, right? So depending on what those circles of influence are, if they are relevant and talking to me in a way that makes me feel like, oh, I get it, they get me, I see the benefit of this product, great. And that is through all levels of influence, whether you're talking about a micro or a nano influencer. Content creators come in all shapes, sizes, and we appreciate that. I think that voices with engaged audiences that actually resonate with the consumer target you're going after is the game. It's not about how many numbers of impressions you get anymore. It's really about quantifying what the KPIs are that are important to your client. Not everybody cares about the same things anymore either. Some want, less quantity of placements, they want more quality coverage. Some want the Wall Street Journal or whatever, right? Their business goals are different. So just finding the mix that makes the most sense is how you kind of first start with the strategy so you can build out how then to bring it to life.
You also raise a very good point too. There's that human element too, like the background information, you know, sometimes just reading one source or getting information from one source doesn't really tell the tale. And you make a really good point, like doing that sort of legwork or doing your due diligence to make sure that you know exactly what the client's looking for and why, and that you could speak to that is the whole, it's really the whole ball of wax and what separates us from,
It is, but you also have to have that flip side conversation. So if their goal is to get on a news outlet, well, then what's the booking producer need? What do they want?
Right.
Because it's not always the same thing. And so having the honest conversation with the client to say, like, awesome, your new innovation is amazing. And we're so proud of it and so happy for you. But this TV outlet doesn't cover that. Or here's what they need instead. And so having a solution, not a no. But the same thing is for a content creator, right? Like those are people and their biggest point of business for them is themselves. So they don't want to jeopardize their authenticity, their relatability, and trade too much of their voice. So I really have honest conversations across the board. And I hope that I'm able to do a nice job balancing because it's kind of what our job is, right? Being able to articulate what the brand needs, but also what the other side of the party wants. So whether that's an earned opportunity and you're talking to an editor who's trying to deliver a certain story or narrative, or it's a content creator trying to build a platform for themselves, or it's a registered dietitian or nutritionist that has a point of view about a specific area that they feel most confident or not confident speaking to. So you kind of have to balance all the angles and be able to weigh those and say confidently, here's a nice middle ground for everybody to play in, and then trying to serve up how that happens and execute it, as best you can.
I love it. Great answer. Recently, you moderated a discussion on AI and brand discovery. I wanted to sort of get your take on that, right? Everybody's wondering where we're at with that, where it's headed. There's that one aspect that people are afraid that it's going to take away jobs. It's going to, what used to be these startup jobs or, these people that came in fresh out of college that didn't mind doing research and sort of the grunt work, that's going to be put away by the AI. And then there's the folks that are like, no, it's just a tool. And it's really the people that are powering that tool. I have my youngest son is in a junior in college right now, and he's majoring in, analytics and, all that stuff. And part of me is like excited to where this is going, and part of me is nervous to where this is going. What's your take on AI and how it's going to help and or hinder us?
Well, I'm super excited about where it might take us. I think, first of all, it's like anything else new in the industry. There's always a reason and always a good reason to pause and evaluate and examine what's good, bad, and potentially nerve wracking about it, right? So anytime something new starts, I remember there was plenty of times where things were announced over my career, especially with regards to social media. We thought, well, this will never take off. And it did. Or this won't ever land. And it didn't. So I think right now we're in it. So like you can choose to adapt and figure it out, or you can be mad about it. And I'm not one to not move at the time. So I find that it absolutely helps aid in the day. But I think, I really lean back. I listened to a panel once where someone had said, it will make your best employee 20% better and your worst employee 20% worse. And I do agree that's true. It's how and when you use it. I think there are definitely guidelines that are required either by your company that you work for, or if like me, you're consulting or an agency role, what are your clients' mandates and guardrails? But if used the way we're supposed to be using it, it can enhance the job and do a great thing. I think it's also really helpful for comms because as a consumer, not speaking as a marketer, but like when you look something up, half the time you're not even going on search anymore. And if you are, you're still only reading the AI summary. So how do you make sure, your clients are showing up there and cited properly and effectively. So you need to lean in on the tools that are available. And this is one right now that's getting a lot of attention. But I think it'll hopefully help our whole society and community move forward by being able to share relevant information and accurate information better. It's just we're in that current learning curve moment of like those models aren't yet fully built into our businesses where everybody's using them at the same scale and all the kinks haven't been worked out. So we're unfortunately in that transitional period where we get to implement them into our businesses at the scale and the speed and the usage that we want. But I think in the future, it'll be just another table stakes like we do for any other, tech implementation that we have at our fingertips. But the context of the moderated panel you're talking about is I volunteer and sit on the board in the Naturally Network. So Naturally Chicago had me there to talk a little bit about that and how it impacts the CPG space specifically.
You've sat on both sides of the table, right? You've been a client, you've been an agency. When getting results, when looking at these KPIs or finding out the ROI for a client, I'm guessing or just hearing from my friends in the industry that work on that side, a lot of these data service analytics companies are going to be engaging AI to sort of offer up this information. Do you think the way that the client and the agency look at it are vastly different, look at that data? Or do you think like there's sort of the agencies leading the client through and sort of illuminating that path of here are the there's it's offering you hundreds of numbers. Here's the stuff you want to look at.
Well, I can't speak to other agencies, but I know for myself and what we're building at Society in the US, it's very much in partnership with our clients. So we collaborate with the platforms we have access to and help work through any questions that clients have. But our clients are really pretty proficient already. And so by sharing data with each other, we can easily say, hey, this is most important or this is least important. So we already know that going in. And I think for me, it's being about you have to be direct and have those conversations ahead of time. I think the hardest part is when I was agency before being a brand person, I promised a lot of things that I had to figure out later. Whereas now I'm a little bit more reserved in what I promise because I would rather someone say that's not going to work and here's why, or let's shift our strategy because of X, or your expectation on that KPI is too high because I've seen. Those are the conversations that can be tricky or tough, but I think they're so much better had ahead of building out a plan that everybody then expects to be delivered with excellence, because I personally didn't like having to go to leadership with a plan that wasn't fully executed at its fullest. So I don't want to set any of my clients up for that same kind of situation. I'd rather say from the start, hey, I think we need to lower that. Here's why. As long as you have solid proof, I'm super competitive. I'm always going to give myself a goal and a stretch goal because I think you can get there. But let's not promise it from the start if we're nervous about it, because I think collectively that doesn't do anybody a service.
Social selling, things like TikTok Shop, which are born from the world of like home shopping network and that sort of stuff. Again, a new technology. I use the word new, but it's not really new. It's kind of been around for a while. I remember, watching my mother watch Home Shopping Network, QVC, and being like, who the hell's ever going to do this? This guy's selling, toothbrushes on here. Nobody's going to ever do this. Nobody's ever. And she would pick up the phone and you would dial that number and then you would place your order. Now, from my phone, I can have whatever I want in 5 minutes, shipped directly to my house. How does marketing and communications alter or change its thought pattern when you're selling things like, at Vital Proteins, you're in that wellness category, and then, when you're at the other end of the spectrum selling other different opportunities? How do you attack something like social selling, or what are your ideas behind social selling? Where do you think that came from? Where do you think it's going?
I mean, I have to say, I think it's exploded, and I think it's a huge revenue stream for the right type of brand. And I think optimizing it and finding ways to test and learn so it's right for your business is my first reco to any client. So if you're nervous about it or you're curious about it, try it. It's not going to be the end of the world, right? Give it a shot and set aside an opportunistic budget. I think one of the things that is really fun is there's so many new opportunities in our marketing and social and PR platform world to operate in that you got to give yourself a little bit of money to try things. It doesn't have to be this big, deep pocket, but you need a little bit set aside for things that no one can predict so that you can take advantage and be a fast mover and get to market quickly and take advantage of things when that does feel right and it does feel like the time to dip your toe in. There are some brands that are already full on in it and like more power to them. I think there are other brands that think they should, and it's sometimes just based on I should be on TikTok, but there's never really a reasoning behind is that even where your audience is? Or do they want to go to TikTok shop? Or are they missing and searching for you? So I think just again, it's having those conversations and getting down to like, is that where your consumer needs to be? And if so, then we should try it.
What about selling to those consumers, right? Whether it's D2C or just engaging consumers in different areas, right? You've had experience selling or being part of international teams. You've had experience being part of your company being on a different continent. You've sort of had to explore all different aspects of that. Do you find that that's something that needs a lot of work when you dive into this too? Like if you're representing a company from Europe, if you're representing a company from Australia versus somebody in California and New York and Chicago, there's that sort of moment where you have to sort of discuss like how maybe like what's the most misunderstood thing when you're going from different areas and different aspects of the globe.
Absolutely. I learned that a lot, obviously, at Vital Proteins when we were bringing campaign work to life and selling products in 20 plus markets around the world, especially in that category, right? There's regulation and regulatory is different in every country. So, understanding the nuances is the best thing that you can do. And then relying on local experts. You have to have people in the market, in my opinion, who understand the sales channels, but also understand the legalities and the complexities of actually selling product in a market, but also understanding the local nuanced rules around marketing and doing what you can do from an advertising perspective. It's really different everywhere. So it's not just about what flies in the States is good everywhere else. And I also think flip on the converse side, there's a lot of expectation that the same rules apply from other countries as to how we operate here in the States. And I would say that's not the case. And so just helping understand those differences and what matters. And here, oftentimes, it's more budget, obviously, a bigger population, more choice in terms of where we buy and retailer opportunities. But I think understanding that, like, kind of omni channel plan and understanding how to tell clients where they should try to start and then where to build, especially for smaller brands that are learning and looking to expand to the States, it's really helpful exercise in saying like, you might not want to do a national campaign here because we're quite big and like a lot of people live here. So maybe start in this area or start with that DMA and then expand. So I think just having the cultural understanding and explaining the way that people operate here, there are many, many differences. But I'd say from my perspective, it's mostly those kind of buckets, right? Like legal, and size and sheer scale. So starting there.
What about trends? Let's talk about trends for a minute. So, we talked a little bit about AI and different things in the marketplace, and certainly you and I have seen our fair share of trends come and go over the years. But what do you think is getting either too much attention right now or not enough attention? Or what grabs your headline? Like when you're flipping through your headlines in your brain of your daily task, what thing are you saying to yourself, I'm going to start focusing some attention here, or enough with this. We've been hearing about this forever. It's not going anywhere. Like, what are some trends on your mind?
Well, rather than that, I think it's the overall trend of negativity. I'd love to see that end. I think we're into clickbait and getting numbers, and I understand the desire, but I don't think it's productive to our overall society or mental health. So for me, it's not necessarily a trend. It's just the overall kind of over dramatization of the news and the cycles that come with it. So I would rather us try to stay positive and help focus on the businesses that are doing the right thing and also focusing on people trying to make efforts in the right direction. Nobody's perfect. No company is perfect. I think some of our expectations are quite unrealistic, but as a consumer, but also as a marketer, I think being able to tell stories that matter and being able to help people understand whether it's the people behind the businesses that are really trying to drive forward something good or making the right choices at trying to make businesses work more efficiently or more sustainably or doing something to help better the world. Honestly, it's what drew me to this particular role, but also why I like to talk with the early stage founders and founders that are not at big giant corporations yet, but have aspiring goals to get to help build something that's going to make everything better for us all.
Would your prediction be for the next, let's say, 3 years out or a year from now? Like, where would you like to see marketing and maybe specific to society? Like, where would you like to see the company grow? Which direction?
Well, that's a great question because I want to see us grow a lot. But I mean, I've got a love for LA because I used to live there. So I'd love
Yeah.
to open a West Coast office for sure and spend some time there myself, especially, in those Chicago
Yeah.
January, February timing. So that's a definite must for me. But no, in all seriousness, like just staying with the clients we have and making them successful in their roles and their businesses grow. I think that's our number one priority. But then bringing in new clients and areas that are important. Like I would love to get back into the beauty and the wellness space. We have some clients in CPG and better for you foods, and we'd love to grow in that area even more because it's a passion point of mine and also a few of our employees. So really want to bring in work that excites people and gets everybody moving and motivated. We also have a lot of great client work in sustainability. And so that is an area that I find fascinating. Science is really cool to me. So doing more of that. Those are categories where I'm interested more than like expanding just geography wise, but we're just still early days. So we're excited about all the growth that hopefully is to come.
I'm positive knowing you that you are the wearer of many hats at the agency, right? Which probably includes the hiring of personnel and all the stuff that sort of goes into making sure that this company goes in that direction that you speak of. What's the hardest part of it, like your job? What would you say, like on a daily basis, the part that maybe takes the most time or you find the most difficult or you enjoy? Which one do you really love to sink your teeth into most?
Honestly, I just like working with people. So I don't find any of it to be like so taxing. I can't complain. I really do like what I do for a living. It's why I've been doing it so long. I've been doing it for a long time, but in various ways. So, kind of being able to flex with different businesses, like I said, with society being kind of category agnostic, we're able to really dig into challenges in a lot of different areas that are all at the same time, usually trying to get to the same. They're answering for the same thing. There's usually a similar problem, right? Of like lack of awareness, or how do you better engage with your current users, or how do you become relevant again? Stuff like that that are actually universal issues and things that brands want to tackle. So I think just like leaning in on my experience, trusting my instincts, that's what I've always done. But I'm really fortunate because I've had awesome people to work alongside for the majority of my career. So like when I am in a pinch, I know who to call and get some advice or suggestions. And that's kind of what I would say to answer your question.
Let's jump back into that sustainability because when you mention that, and again, that's a great touch point because when you mention that, it means different things to different people, right? Like sustainability in my line of work, sustainability used to mean the types of materials that were used to create things like packaging that were used to create the actual not only the packaging of the items themselves, but the items they use as a vehicle to distribute these pieces. Now sustainability is driven not only that, but like it brings in ingredients, right? Like what's a sustainable ingredient? Are you using the right ingredients when you create this, whether it's a cosmetic or a beauty into things or something in the wellness area or just about anything? What does it mean to you when you hear the term sustainability? If you're having a discussion with a client or somebody's bouncing things off you, tell me what that means to you.
Honestly, all the things you said. It can mean so many things. And again, it goes back to the business you're working on. So whether it is a packaging solution, sourcing solution, even supply chain, like there are so many things that you can uncover that are brands doing something right. Everybody's doing their best. But if you're really truly trying to be transformative about how your business operates while also doing something to better the earth that we all live on, great. So finding those stories and telling them more broadly is the key. I think sometimes those are the things that make you buy a product, whether you know it is or not. It definitely impacts subconsciously or consciously your decision. And I think also it's just the right thing to do in this time of the world. So, like as a business operator, how can you be smarter about what you do on the daily that would help make this place better versus make it worse?
And I think what you just said nails it on the head too, as far as the things like community, right? Like you hear the word community said a lot now, and it really ties into brands that want to reflect who they are as a brand and what they represent to this community, because these are the folks that they tie in and they sell their product to, right? It becomes very disingenuous if you offer a sustainable item that you really haven't done your homework on, and in the back end, it's really not sustainable. You say it's low carb, but it's not really low carb. It's just the wording. And we've had guests on our podcast here that have talked about that exact marketing strategy, right? Like there are companies that, because it costs so much and takes so much time to actually develop it, let's just reword it a little bit so it sounds like it is. But it sounds like what you're saying is true. Like if you really believe in these products, if you really believe in your clients' products, it's a much easier marketing sell than a ploy, right? You don't want to just create marketing around a message that may or may not be true, because in the end, you're going to lose that community that you took a long time to build. Any experience with that?
Yes, of course, tons of. And I think you said it right, but I think you're not only eroding trust, but you're potentially working into like illegal territory. So
Yes.
you don't want to greenwash, because in the end, it's going to cost you more than it would have cost you to do the right thing in the first place. So a copywriter's job isn't to try to make something sound better. Instead, you should have that copywriter partner with someone in regulatory or someone in innovation or someone in R&D to understand what steps are being taken. Like, where did you source that fill in the blank ingredient from? Because then if there is a true story to be had, awesome, let's tell it more broadly. But if there isn't one, don't concoct one for no reason that is only going to hurt you down the line. But I think it's working with partners and brands to understand how to utilize internal resources better than staying siloed, because the more you can actually understand how a product is create it and go to market, the better you can actually market it and help people understand that they should buy it because they're doing the right thing. So I think that comes down to working with designers who are actually making the packaging. What did they decide those materials to be used for? Because it's better for the product, better for the planet, better for, supply chain to whip those things out fast, or manufacturing to make it done quicker. Like, there are definitely operational challenges that come into play. But as long as those things are taken into consideration along with sustainability in some way, you can make a lot more good happen than bad. You just have to ask the right questions and partner with people internally to get it done.
What advice would you give Katie from X years ago? What tell me about one piece of advice you would give yourself, your younger self?
Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing.
I love that answer.
I've had some ups and I've had some downs. And guess what? It's made me who I am today. I'm grateful for those people that stayed with me in the down and helped me pick back up. And really grateful for some of the people that pushed me a little down. Actually, at the time, I wasn't happy about it, but I think it just makes you more resilient and a more empathetic leader and a better marketer, because in the end, we've all made missteps. No one's perfect. But I think owning up to them and realizing that there are moments you could have done better is all that anyone can do, and reflect and do better next time. So I wouldn't change a thing.
It's a great answer too, because to be honest with you, like sometimes, and when you're living it, you're like, oh my God, this is the end. How am I going to go on, right? But those mistakes or those potholes or those missteps or whatever it is you did along the way, as we all have, really made you who you are. And you're sitting in the chair you're sitting in because you've climbed into that hole and got yourself out of that hole and learned and moved on, and said this and you shouldn't have said this and you corrected it by doing this. Like all this sort of stuff builds. And I don't want to sound like my father here, but this generation of workforce, I think, appreciates or should appreciate more that sometimes you need to take your lumps along the way in order to gain that sense of worth, to be able to you know people here always ask me, like, you always look so comfortable walking into a room. I'm the chief networking officer. Of course I do, but that's only because, I've walked in 10,000 rooms and had 10,000 questions posed to me that I had to like listen and hear and say a few times. Like, tell me what PIMS does. How many thousands of times I had to say that before I got comfortable with what my answer would be. That only comes through just learning and doing. And like you said, sort of opening yourself up to just sort of make those mistakes and not changing a thing about it, just living.
Yeah, I think people need to be more honest. Like, no one's got this perfect career path that all worked out as they ever envisioned it, because that's not real. And also because as we've all grown in this industry, the industry changes every day on the hour. So how could you ever predict where you would be in 5 years? When people ever ask, like, where do you see yourself this time? I'm like, I don't even know what the world will look like then. So like, I don't know how to answer. I'm excited for what new tools will be in our, capability set, but like, I wouldn't even know how to guess what's to come. I'm excited for all of it. And I just know at the heart, as long as I can work with good people, that's the key. Like, all these years that we've been working in this industry, I think at the end of the day, I mean, even you calling me out of the blue, like, all that time has gone by and I was like, yeah, sure. Like, let's chat, blah, blah, blah. Those are but that's how most people in my network are. It's like, I don't know if I've talked to you last week, last year, or in like 10 years. Like, it doesn't matter. If you have a good rapport with someone, it definitely makes an impression. It definitely sticks with you. And if you haven't, sometimes it's also good to reach out and apologize and say, I wish I'd done better. I've done those too. And I think that all of it is good. And I hope that it motivates the next generation to come, because I think it's easy to feel like, oh my gosh, AI is going to take my job, but it isn't. Go out there and go get that job that you want. Like, I had to work really hard for that first job, and I've had to work really hard for every job since. And it doesn't mean it's easier. It just means you got to keep your head up and keep going.
Katie, one of the OGs from I'm a native New Yorker, but part of my heart is in Chicago because it's just a great city. And the next time I'm in town, I'm definitely going to treat you for lunch. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
no. Thank you for having me. You can come anytime. Just, I would avoid the winter.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you at Society, what's the best way to do that?
Email me. It's Katie, Katie, at societymarcom.com.
Excellent. Thanks again.
Thank you.